Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV. Well, I'm off on another adventure, yes. I'm actually doing something completely new on Herpanwo TV today. And, well, this involves something I haven't really talked much about. I have mentioned it before in other videos, but I haven't really gone into details about it. Today I am going to go into details. I am... some of you know this already, like I said, but I am what is commonly known as pro-life. Now, I know that's a strange term, isn't it, as opposed to what pro-death. This particular issue that I'm talking about is loaded with rhetoric. I'll say more about that later, but I am pro-life. By that I mean I am opposed to the termination of pregnancy. Yes, I see you all immediately hitting pause and going for your keyboards now. Some of you, I know. And the answer to the question, the very, very first question I'm going to get is, yes, I would. What's the question, Ben? Oh, we'll come to that later. Yeah, in fact, I'll go into more of the ethical arguments about my position later on in this video. Right now, I've got to just get to the event and I'll just show you the event. It's called the March for Life. It actually begins with an exhibition and a conference at a place called the Emmanuel Centre in London, which is where I'm heading. I'm going to London, yeah, again. The march actually that begins at 10 a.m. I don't want to go to the whole of that. I'll drop in there just before the march leaves. The march actually leaves. It's like a protest demonstration, which leaves at 1:30 this afternoon from the Emmanuel Centre. My goal is to get to London in time for that, which I'm pretty likely to do. I'll get there a bit early, so I'll have a chance to look around the exhibition. So, yeah, it's something I've not done. I've never been on a pro-life demonstration before, which is strange because I'm pro-life. I'm very staunchly pro-life. So, surprising, really. You know, you'd think, well, why didn't you do this before? Because there's always events going on about it. I mean, the pro-life anti-abortion, or termination, to use this correct terminology, it's very large, it's very well organised, and so it is kind of surprising I've not done this before. Well, I'm doing it now, so I've got to get to the coach now to London and make my way there. So hope you'll come and join me. Hello there, I'm in London now. What was I called it in the last time I was here? A concentration camp pretending to be a theme park. Yeah, it was. And so I don't like being here. And I mean, I'm actually avoiding the reptile house. I don't actually have to go past the reptile house. In fact, it'd be out of my way. But normally I would take a trip down to see the reptile house just out of curiosity. And the other things. I might be able to see them on the way back, but I'm finding it increasingly uncomfortable doing that. I'm finding just the being in this metropolis, at least in the centre of this city, Britain's capital, increasingly intimidating. I'm increasingly feeling out of place. Oh, he's an alien. I'm an evil alien. I'm a hospital porter in London. That's an alternative to the Sting song there. Yeah. I've just been admiring Westminster Cathedral, which is actually one of the nice buildings and pleasant buildings around here. It actually has a very pleasant energy. It's the Roman Catholic Cathedral here. And now, I know I'm a big critic of the Catholic Church, but you know, I'm just wondering where they're going to go actually in the next few years, decades, centuries, and it's not that long, but years and decades certainly. And what I like, I mean, the reason I feel I'm well disposed to them today is because they've always been a rock in the storm over the abortion issue. They've always been absolutely committed to the pro-life movement. I mean, there's literally a memorial in there. So they say the memorial for the babies who have no grave. That's all it says, and it's a very moving tribute to the victims of this Holocaust, of people who had their lives taken from them before they even had the chance to draw breath. And the Catholic Church has always been, like I said, a real anchor in that debate. I remember Liverpool's Catholic Cathedral as well, which is kind of a rotunda. It also has a memorial for terminated fetuses and embryos. But the way things are going at the moment, Pope Francis appears to be like the globalist Pope. Is even that going to come down at some point? I mean, maybe that's a bit too extreme, even for this disgusting world. But you never know. You never know. I mean, almost anything's possible now. It seems like there's very few people have anything to make a stand on. They want to make a stand on. I'm just navigating now. I've got to the end of Ambrosden Avenue, where I have to turn left. Right. Thank goodness I've got my trusty old A to Z, which is really a bit too trusty and a bit old now. I think I need to replace it because some of the pages are missing. Luckily, not the place I'm going to today. So I'm just going to make my way through these little small streets now. It reminds me of Julian Assange's, the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy where Julian Assange is. This sort of like, we're a long way from there actually. That's actually in Kensington, which is quite a long way away from here. But it's still is like that. It's that kind of architecture. Francis, we're on Francis Street now. Let's have a look. I think we should carry on now up here till we get to Hawick Place. Oh. There's also black cars coming along. I think either they come for me or they're looking for UFO witnesses. I don't know. But no, I like Westminster Cathedral. Is I went in there once with Mrs. B. This was before we fell out, and I, even as a kind of lapsed Catholic, I felt a sense of belonging there. And it's beautiful. Like many churches, it's exquisitely designed and decorated. And Mrs. B said, "Are you coming back to your faith, Ben?" And I went, "So don't push it." But I did feel it was a very pleasant place to look. Check I'm going the right direction. That's Greenock Row. Okay, I'm on the right direction now. But I'm going to get to this place. When I get there, there's going to be like an exhibition. I've actually timed it very well. It's about midday now. I think you just heard the chimes going, which means I've got time to have a chance to have a look around before the parade begins, the big march. So that'll be fun. Okay, guys, see you later. Hey guys, I've reached the Emmanuel Centre now. I'm going to go on in there and have a look around. Still over an hour till the march starts, so I'll film anything I can film in there. Okay, or take photographs. Okay. There's so much going on here. It's amazing. Just one room. There's a lot going on here. Look at all this here. seems that this is like an umbrella movement. There's so many different organisations all working together. There's more through here. I'll show you. Look at this. I'll show you the stalls at the front here. These are free, those. I've got one there, see. That's actually free. They just gave me that when I came in. There's more up here, I think.
Not only affects me, but also affects me. So it's up to us to help other young men stand up for the unborn and support women of our society who
so many people.
maybe been told you have no right to speak on.
Okay, this is the auditorium I found here, and we've been listening to a number of speakers. Obviously I came in late, but you can see how many people are here. It's a huge crowd. Very, very interesting speakers. I'll probably say more about it in a minute, because right now we've got to find our way out because the march is about to start. And here we are. We're about to start in a minute. And I've got my little flag here. Live from conception, no exception. It's actually upside down, but never mind. I can put it the right way around. There, let's put it the right way around. There we go. Did you see how many people there are? There's huge numbers of people. There's got to be about 400 or 500 at least. And so we're going to go to Parliament Square now. It's the usual thing for these kinds of protests. So, I've been on so many before for other things, as you know. They're now unfurling a huge banner at the front, you can see. I like that, look. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That really be my voice. Exactly, yeah. Very good poster.
I know about the two.
There's another one like that, look.
Actually, one guy who's
Look at this, this is going to be huge. I think I'm going to move back because look.
volunteers, hold banner.
More people, please. Anyone else on this side?
You can probably see what it says better than I can. I can't actually see that. You probably had a better view there. This will really. So he's going to get a photo of it, I think.
Got 2 more people.
It's something. I mean, I think most of the people here are really young. You know, it's like student age, and lots of children. It's got real energy to it. It's very vibrant. That's got to be one of the best banners there. The Real Extinction Rebellion. Perfect. Come to the front. And there is David Curtin. I knew he'd be here. Mayoral candidate. I know he's very much on our side here. So yeah. And here we're going. Yeah.
Not too bad.
Here we the wind was blowing a little while ago, and it blew the flags. The flags moved. There's my flag there. We have a police presence here, of course. All these protests do. There's a band at the front. I don't know if you can hear them. There's some music at the front. It's a really mixed bunch of people. Lots of young people here. Lots of people of all races as well. Hobay banners there. What's that say there? Baby's life, baby's choice. Yeah, exactly. They can't make a choice because they're babies, and they can't speak because they're babies. The wind was up earlier, and like I said, the flags blowing in the wind always looks really good when you get lots of flags and they're blowing in the wind. As you know, this is not the first protest I've been on, but it's a very different bunch. Lots of people with religious symbols. Lots of people have been praying. No swearing, no beer swilling. I mean, it is a bit different from the Brexit protest, which, as you know, they did have an element that did that. So it's different now. There's so many children here, families. You know. Hello, David.
Hello,
My name's Ben.
Hello, Ben.
This is David Curtin.
Hello, everybody.
That's my big YouTube channel, Ben the Job.
Okay.
I follow you on Twitter.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome. It's good you're here.
Yeah, it was right. I mean, really good to be. I mean, you know, I'm Christian, pro-life, so you know, it's really important because what we learned back in there in the building before we started is that 1 in 4 pregnancies end in abortion. I don't think many people realise it's that high.
Yeah.
It's a horror that's going on in this country. You know, we've got to stand up against that.
Definitely, it's appalling. And I mean, all of us were former fetuses and embryos once. The only reason that abortion happens, I think, is because when you're that young, you can't speak for yourself. You can't.
Yeah.
Every one of these people would say, if you were given the choice, would you choose to die or live? And they say, we would choose to live. Who would choose to die? You know, who would actually opt to die?
Well, you know, people always talk about protecting the vulnerable, but these are the most vulnerable people in the world.
Exactly,
and they
yes.
don't get the protection from the very same people that talk about protecting all the other vulnerable people. So something's wrong there. And, you know, I think hopefully today the message will go out that we need to protect unborn children.
Absolutely, David. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you didn't win. I'm sorry you're not the mayor. You deserve to be the mayor.
Me too. I gave it my best shot. Obviously, it's very disappointing, but I'm carrying on with the Heritage Party now, so
Brilliant.
still leading that, and we'll be back next time.
Well, I'm on your list.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks a lot, man. Cheers.
You're welcome. So David Curtin there. I didn't plan that interview. He just sort of turned up. Lovely guy, lovely chap. 40 days for life is like the 40 days often comes up in the Bible, and Jesus being in the wilderness for 40 days. When I first saw it, I thought it said 40 weeks, because of course 40 weeks is the gestation period of a baby. I mean, I haven't counted them, but there's more. Obviously, there were a few hundred people in the auditorium. There's several thousand people here now, definitely. Several thousand.
That's what it's about.
Now we pause for a moment, and the Extinction Rebellion fruit salad appears to be out and about plastics. It's actually, you know, don't mind the climate change thing, but the plastics in the ocean is a real serious problem, so I don't want to take the piss too much. We've had no counter-protest yet, but there are members of the public watching us at the moment. We seem to be going down all the small streets at the moment. I think they don't want to, and perhaps they don't want to close off the big streets. It could be something like that. But at some point we may well meet a counter-protest, in which case be sure I will be filming them. You can bet. The police are like quite easygoing. I think they know we're a civilised bunch.
Hello, just a second. Okay, all right. Kids, okay.
Who stopped for a moment. It's actually, it takes a long time you know, it took a long time to get going because it actually takes a long time to organise marches like this. So very often it can take like half an hour longer just to get everyone together, because there is a formation to this march. There's the band at the front, then there's the chanting, and then there's the choir marches, then there's the praying marches at the back. That's how they decided it. And
I don't think that people realise.
David there is being interviewed by the mainstream media. Something which I wouldn't, I don't know, maybe because he's a prominent politician, they'll be fairer to him than they would be to me, but I personally wouldn't. If it's BBC or something, I'd say get lost, no way. We're now almost at Parliament Square. I mean, it's obviously not a very long march. Certainly not like the Jarrow marches. I think there's going to be a big rally when we get there. There'll be a big rally. Sorry. Oh, that's good. Very nice. That's a good one. Yeah. We are, as you can see, that through the tree. You may through the trees be able to see the Palace of Westminster. The Ship of Many Fools, or the House of Fools, or whatever it's called. The House of Cards. That was a great drama series. That was. If you've never seen it, the British version, the original, not the American one. Oh man. I can hear there were people. There's even more people that see beyond the front there. You can see like. I think I might have ended up in the quiet marching area by mistake. Never mind.
I remember it was said of the
Never mind.
NUS when
Oh, that's right. Correct. Gentleman wearing a cassock there. There were several people actually here in ecclesiastical vestments. There were some nuns and some friars, a couple of priests I've seen. Obviously this is more than a religious issue, as I'll explain more later, but that's always going to be, it's always going to be centred around that. And there was Westminster Abbey, not to be confused with Westminster Cathedral. It's very grand. Doesn't, for me, it doesn't have quite the warmth of Westminster Cathedral. I much prefer the other one. But and there's no doubt its splendour. Its design work, excellent. Amazing things, these cathedrals. And inevitably, we have the counter-protest. Just be defiant to these people, that's it. Be true. That's it, be defiant to these people, these cultural monarchists. No, unison.
Keep it moving!
Socialist workers are all doing it. You get that, that's inevitably going to happen. You see, there are hardly any there, you see. If you see, very small, there's only like about, I think it's about 20 of them. So, that's not a lot, is it? Abortion, oh my god, what a right. There's some more. Oh, that's sorry, it's about 22 of them. Let's take your rosaries off your ovaries. Off our ovaries. That's like an old one. You got. Well, that was good. I waved my flag at them. I was defiant. Oh dearie me. You know, 20 years ago, 25 years, no, longer than that. A while ago, I may well have been on their side. But I saw sense. Oh look, we've been watched by we've been watched from the skies as well, as always. You can't have any kind of protest like this without without that, actually, without a helicopter over it. Well, let them shout abuse, that's all they can do. Leaving Parliament Square now, and we're going up Whitehall. I mean, I thought that there was going to be a rally at Parliament Square. It may have been moved, possibly because of the counter-protest, I don't know. But this wasn't the plan I heard, but never mind, I'll just follow the others and hope the people at the front know where they're going. There's quite a poetic shot there, I think, a bit of an arty one there. David Curtin and Downing Street. Oh dear. Of course, David Curtin is, I think, he's the Boris that Boris could have been. Hope to see him in there one day. It's something like, yeah, I thought it was something like that. Yes, definitely. I got a quick shot down Downing Street. Yeah. That was all right. Actually, I hope Boris wakes out of his stupor one day.
Oh yeah. Well, he won't be there today, will he?
No. But he could have been great. He was great to begin with, and then he sort of lost it.
Yeah,
But,
very quickly. Yeah.
Hopefully you Mayor of London and Donald Trump back as a president.
Oh yeah,
US president, I think. That would be nice. That would be perfect, wouldn't it? I see we watched over carefully there, but I see the police helicopters up there, still keeping an eye on us. You can't go anywhere now without the eyes in the sky. And no doubt the CCTV's like clocking us all as well. They may even recognise us actually from when I was arrested. I don't know. Quite close to Horse Cars Parade now. Armed police inside Horse Cars Parade. Funnily enough, that's the first armed police I've seen today. Actually, even at the station there were no police with rifles on them, but. The police on this march all got their custodian helmets on, which, if they think there's going to be trouble, they usually have baseball caps on. If they think there's going to be no trouble, they tend to wear their custodian, the domed helmet, the custodian helmet. That's a good sign. It means they trust us. They trust us to behave because they know we're the kind of people who do. You see, we're getting close to Trafalgar Square now. Oh, we got Extinction Rebellion at the same time. I thought that might be a counter-protest for a moment. It's not. It's actually. I thought it might be. It's not. It's the Extinction Rebellion, people. Oxford United fan, eh? Come all this way. It's the plastic litter in the ocean thing, but I've said enough about that, But the problem is this is still an astroturfed, government, corporate, George Soros funded movement, unfortunately. That's an unusual bike he's got there. He gets a good view of it, doesn't he? Slightly ahead now to the further down the march now. We're going back down Whitehall. There were some people. I think I sort of drifted back into the prayer group. There were some people saying the Rosary, Hail Mary, etc., etc., and I found myself praying along with them, just instinctively, and it gave me a wonder. You can hear them still doing it. You can hear them still doing it, and it gave me a wonderful, warm feeling. Actually, I must admit, I felt a sense of calm and peace. And weird, that, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't mean I'm changing my opinions on anything. It's just, it's years since I said the Rosary, and it's very strange. Oh, look, there's people there I would be with today if it wasn't for this.
They don't want Nigerian girls to go to school. They don't want Nigerian girls to have education. So defend our cause for the Yoruba nation. Yoruba nation.
I think there's two protests going on there. Right.
Life from conception.
No exceptions.
Life from conception.
No exceptions.
This is the #1 issue of our times.
Yeah.
With great sorrow in our hearts that we even have to do this. voices who cannot speak.
Yay!
Voice who cannot be heard. We march for our children, our children's children, and our generations who have gone even before us. We march for it all. From 1967, we march for life. Tonight, guys. Today, this afternoon, not tonight, today. We're going to raise some serious praise because you know what? We have one person, one being to thank for life, and that is God. Am I right? Who is the author of all life? Amen. Our Father in heaven. We are so grateful for him, to him for every life given. We are so grateful. And we are going to raise some praise right now. We're going to
The counter approach is trying to drown us out, but they can't.
Yes, we do. Just wait
The
for
counter
the
protests, you can see, are really can't drown us out.
Bless the Lord with me. Respond.
Lord, we need.
Come on and bless the Lord with me. Bless the Lord with me. Sing it again. Come on, bless the Lord with me.
Bless the Lord with me.
Come on, bless the Lord with me.
Bless the Lord with me.
Sing hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Still arriving up there, look.
Sing it again, hallelujah. 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 Come on, bless the Lord.
Bless the Lord with me.
Bless the Lord.
Bless the Lord with me.
Come on and bless the Lord with me.
Yeah, I'm quite enjoying this. It's quite nice. Hallelujah. Who's just the devil's got all the best tunes?
Your hands with me.
I'm just going to give you another. I'm going to head off now. But before I do, I'm just going to give you another shot of the entire Parliament Square. You can count them for me. There's thousands of people. But I can't. I'm going to head off now. It's mostly singing now, I think. I mean, I heard the speakers earlier on, so I don't really need to stay for the rally. I've got a long way to get home, so I'm going to leave the rally now. But I really loved it. I've had a great day. I'm glad I was here. The counter demo was like really pathetically small. you can hardly hear them in a distance shouting. So, well, great stuff. I'm off. I'm going back home now. So. Literally, they've only just stopped arriving, and the whole of Parliament Square is full. That's how many people they are. But it's been a really good nation. No trouble at all. The police were great. We were peaceful. They were peaceful. You know, can't really fault it. I've still got my. I'm supposed to get this back at the end, but I don't know who to give it back to. So I'm now going to head off past the old House of Fools and go home. I've got a little bit more. I think I've got to do a bit more on this video where I just explain a few more things, and that's not going to be easy. I've got to go into some quite painful topics, so I hope you'll bear with me. I might even wait till I'm back in Oxford before I do that. I'm on a coach now. And these are some of the things I got. Vote Heritage Party, there we go. I got this off David Curtin. He was carrying them around, handing them up. And there we go. You can pause and read in the best Panwo TV tradition there. And there's the man himself, David Curtin. I've also got this. What do you think about abortion? You can read this as well. goodness me. Am I ever glad to be out of it? Thank goodness. Talk about a blessing in disguise. Okay, I'm not going to... there's some things inside there. I'm not going to show you what's inside that particular leaflet. In fact, I'm going to have to throw the leaflet away because it's just too horrible. I'm a tough guy, I'm an ex-hospital porter, but there's some things I can't face. And I opened up the leaflet and had a quick look, and that's all I'm going to look at. Okay. And here's another souvenir. This is, they put this on you when I walked in. Life from conception, no exception. That's this little wristband I can add to my pledge and March for Life UK. Well, I'm back. I'm back here in Oxford, and back at in what's become a lovely evening. Actually, it's become a really nice evening, really pleasant. I mean, this is the area. I'll be in it properly in a minute. This is the area, South Park, where I filmed my Sarah Everard videos, and the weather's not just as nice now as it was on those occasions. So. I'm back from my first ever pro-life demonstration, and I am surprised it is the first, like I said earlier on, because it's something I feel as strongly about as almost anything. But other things have been on other protests, but not this for some reason. I think that's this is an issue over a lot of people are fairly neutral, and they have a fairly neutral opinion, and there's like people on the extremes, like pro-choice and pro-life, as they're called. I say pro-choice. It's odd that so much emotional rhetoric is used in this particular issue. For example, simply saying pro-life is what we call ourselves on our side of the debate. Whereas the other side calls themselves pro-choice, and their catchphrase actually is an absolute masterpiece of propaganda. It's a masterpiece of propaganda. They talk about a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to choose. It's like, you know, that's so loaded down with kind of moral blackmail, really, that it makes it more and more difficult to counter. All the best propaganda is not rational, it's emotional. It's designed to warp the thoughts of people through their feelings. You get into their feels and you change their thoughts. I mean, you know how many times you've probably had a debate with people who really just don't say anything to counter your position, but they just go on an emotional trip, you know. But if we crash out without the deal, and things like that, you know. I've covered that before. Of course, I'll have to look into more on the other side of the story, I suppose, because I suppose I haven't educated myself on the other side. I mean, I have done so enough, I think, to know which position I hold, but I'd like to be able to argue better. Now, there's the people who support abortion. There's several types. I mean, the ones today, I think, they do it for secular humanist reasons, and a lot of them a lot of them from the sort of left, atheo-skeptico, materialo left. But there's others. For example, David Icke is pro-abortion, and this is strange. He said in one of his talks that when we're talking about abortion rights, we should give women the choice to have abortions and not have them. He also mentioned in one of his books that he believed that a soul doesn't actually enter a body until the parents choose to have the baby, choose to continue the pregnancy. So the parents have to make that choice, and then the soul enters the body. That, to me, well, it's awfully convenient, isn't it? Sounds to me a little bit too convenient. Another person who's pro... See, because, like I said, these people are not... David Icke obviously is not an atheo-skeptico, material, humanist, skeptic, leftist, but he's from the sort of spiritual persuasion, but he still has that pro-abortion spiritual he supports abortion from a spiritual level. Another I know who's pro-abortion is Sticks Hexenhammer. That surprised me actually. They did. I mean, I haven't listened to his argument. What I'll do is I will have to watch his videos on the subject because I haven't watched them yet. I don't want to watch all his stuff because he uploads so much. He uploads about an hour and a half a day, and I haven't covered it all. But not these people are going to change my mind. I mean, I think I know enough now to put my position, to found a position, but I just want to be able to argue better. It does seem awfully convenient, you know. Well, the soul doesn't enter the body, you know. And it's very similar. I mean, the secular scientific position would be, oh well, you know, it's not a conscious being yet. It's not really alive. It's not conscious. Its brain's not working and stuff like that. Very often people say this. They don't actually know that. It's an assumption. It's a convenient assumption that lets them off the hook. Life is full of these sorts of cop-outs, you know, these moral cop-outs. Anyway, the question, yes. The answer is yes, I would. What's the question? You've been wanting to know that all through this video. Well, the question is already, someone's already put it in the comment section already, and it is, Ben, are you telling me that you, as a man, a white male, a white heterosexual male, a white heterosexual working class male, knuckle-dragging Brexit voter, would stand in front of a woman who's just been raped and tell her she can't have an abortion? That's the question, to which the answer is yes, I would. But Ben, isn't it horrible? And no, is it horrible? Well, of course it's always horrible when that woman goes through that situation. Obviously, like one of the people, it's interesting, one of the people who did the speeches earlier on before the march starts, she was a woman who'd conceived a baby during rape. And the baby was her son, and he came and stood beside us. I reckon he's about 6 years old. And she gave a very impassioned, moving speech about why there should not be a REFA exemption. Indeed, I do not believe in the REFA exemption. REFA stands for rape, incest, fetal abnormality. It's a person's humanity is not lessened depending on how they're conceived, nor should their human rights be diminished based on the way they're conceived. So if they're conceived in this kind of way, their human rights still exist. And it's astonishing, actually. You know, we have elevated, I think feminism has kind of elevated this sort of thing to really pathological extents. It's horrible when that happens. It's a horrible thing. It's horrible when a woman gets raped. Worse still when she conceives. But we then say, well, let's just, because of that, the baby therefore matters less and should not have the same rights as everyone else. It's an interesting ethical equation. The second speaker, there was a lady who had an abortion and really regretted it. She went on to have more children, but she's become a Christian. She says she describes her babies as being in heaven. She lost 2 children, but she went through a terrible, horrible time having her abortion. And then the third speaker was a guy who, he said he worked in a hospital, and he didn't say what it was. And you know what that means. It means he was a porter. That's what whenever someone says I work in a hospital, what do you do? Well, I just work in a hospital. It means they're a porter. And so I didn't jump up and salute him. If I'd spoken to him privately, I would have done, but I didn't, because if this was an auditorium, as you saw, full of people. But he said that he worked in the gynecological area where they did abortions, and the recovery nurses were always saying, I wonder if any of them are going to cry today. And what you'd often get is, they'd say that quite casually, because, you know, nurses can be absolutely pseudo-psychopathic bitches. But the reason they said that is because women who come around from anaesthetic after abortion often cry. They know at a deep spiritual level that what's been done, or what they have done, what voluntarily, is a terrible thing. I should point out, actually, you know, if on no account would I ever say that a woman should be forced to have a child that she doesn't want and actually raise that child. You see, there's a huge supply and demand situation here for any woman who doesn't want to raise their child. Do you know how many childless couples there are who will adopt that child? And this includes reefer babies. Currently the demand far exceeds the supply. In other words, parents who want to adopt a child have to wait for years because there just simply aren't enough babies there to be adopted because they're all slaughtered before they're born. I mean, God knows what these poor people must think of abortions. I mean, God knows. But they're sitting there, they can't have a baby, and then there's women just lopping them like dissidents in the French Revolution with the guillotine. It's lopping their heads. It's like lopping their heads off. In some cases, literally lopping their heads off. I mean, I'm not sure I should recommend you watching this, but there's someone called Dr. Anthony Levatino. He's a former gynecologist who performed terminations. And like I said, it's not for the faint-hearted. If you want to watch his testimony, how what was done to babies, especially later term, second and even third trimester terminations, it's not for the squeamish, and he used to do that regularly until that's what's basically was on the inside of that flyer that I didn't show you. He shows pictures like that and he explains what happens, and he had a crisis of conscience when his 9-year-old daughter was run over by a car, and he stopped. But you don't. I say you don't want to. I would recommend you do not watch those videos unless you really feel you're up to it. So no, I don't believe in the reefer exemption. I don't think there's any excuse for it. I mean, there's all kinds of other. Really, there's a kind of no-fault abortion situation in our society. I mean, it's what feminism has raised this. It's not about feminism. Is not about women's rights. As I said before, it's about turning women into weapons against civilization. And these weaponized women, we've essentially, society has elevated the whims of these weaponized women to such a high level that they exceed even the sanctity of human life. That's not going to be a popular idea with all of you, but it's what, you know, you presumably are watching this video because you want my opinion, and you've asked for it and you're getting it. So there. And again, you see, another thing people often say is abortion should be allowed up to, say, 12 weeks, or some people say 14 weeks, and they quibble over whether it should be 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 14 weeks. These things vary from country to country. Indeed, in this country, there is I think a 32-week limit. I think it's 32 weeks. In some countries, that's higher, unfortunately. In some countries, you can have literally fourth trimester abortions. That is, the baby essentially is killed during birth. In China, they do this regularly, and it's a monster. It's an evil. It's a monstrosity. To be honest, that is done in this country sometimes, but it's only ever done for the most dire medical emergencies. And I've seen it done actually. It's not. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to even think about that. But I have seen that done. You've got to, you see, they'll say, well, you know, it's okay because, you know, an early term, first trimester abortion is fine because the baby's just a clump of cells. It's just a clump of cells. Well, what am I? What are you? We're clumps of cells. All of us are clumps of cells. The thing is, there's just many, many more cells with us because we're bigger. We're bigger, so we have more cells. At what point does one become the other? This is what you have to ask the people who say, well, abortion is right up to a certain gestation. At what point does one become the other? So, for example, if you say, well, abortion is fine up to the 12th week. Okay, so does that mean that at 11:59 p.m. on the last day of the 12th week, that baby's not human, and then ding dong, it's midnight, and almost like Cinderella, humanity comes into that child at that very moment, and from then on they're a human. If that's so, then why is that? What mechanism actually happens? It's David Icke's soul thing. I don't know. Or the skeptic equivalent, which is brain activity or heartbeat or something. I mean, what the hell? You know, what kind of how can this possibly be justified? If there is something that happens literally physically in the world to make that person human when before they weren't, then what is it, and why does it happen at that moment? If why not then? Why not at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 4 weeks, 13 weeks, 4 weeks, etc. Yeah. So again, if you'd say, well, if you assume a baby is human has human rights from its conception, as they used to do in Ireland before the bloody Eighth Amendment was destroyed. Oh, I wrote an article about that, I remember. And it's like, you realise, you know, if you kill a newborn baby, infanticide, that's murder. Oh yeah, it is in this country. Yet to do it, I don't think it's actually murder to kill for fourth trimester abortions. I don't think that's murder. I think it is an offence, but it's not murder. I know in some countries it is murder. So it's odd that in some countries, no, some countries it's actually not an offence at all. Fourth trimester abortion, in other words, during birth, is actually not a crime. It's actually done regularly, like in China, like I said. So when the baby comes out, it's human. When it's inside, it's not. Again, it's mumbo jumbo. It's illogical. You know, they can't work out where the cut-off point is between. You see, the appeasers of the abortionists, essentially, they're trying to create arbitrary barriers. On this side of the barrier, it's not right and that thing's human. On the other side, it's fine, and they don't have any reasons for it. It's all nonsense. It's all illogical nonsense. And unfortunately, what does it say on that? What 800 plus? Was it abortions? I can't look at that flyer again. 800 so much abortions per day. Since 1967 in this country, there's been like 800 per day on average. You can do the maths. Funnily enough, you know, in Westminster, where there was they just put up a new, I don't know if I can say the word, a H-word memorial, one of many, and they put one up in Westminster outside the Houses of Parliament. But there's more than one kind of H-word. I mean, doesn't this count as a H-word? Doesn't 800 per day count as a H-word? If you had that for adults, if you had like a death camp with mass graves and a gas chamber and things like that, and you were putting 800 people per day through this gas chamber into the mass grave or into the crematorium, you know, wouldn't that count as a H-word? But when you do it to people below a certain age, it doesn't. It's so common now. Early trimester abortions now are actually so common, and they're just so. It's like it's no more in. It's almost as common as a trip to the dentist, and with modern medical technology, it's not much more invasive. And before, I think 8 weeks, you can just the woman just takes a pill, and she has like the equivalent of a very heavy period, and that's it. Oh. Interestingly, there was some, as you'd probably expect, when it came to the abolition of the Eighth Amendment in Ireland, there was some globalist influence with that. Yes, indeed. Peter Sutherland, one of the last things Peter Sutherland did before he dropped down to the pits of hell where he belongs, is promote the Irish Constitution Amendment. A lot of people fought against it. I know John Scarry, who watches me, Lawrence, all of the people in TNS and Irish Side of the Moon, they fought against this, and they did a good job. But you know, they had the entire mainstream media on top of them. And you know what? The Catholic Church never said a bloody word. You'd think. Actually, I was shocked and dismayed at how completely and utterly mute the Catholic Church was in Ireland over this. They hardly said a bloody. They hardly lifted a finger. Which is why I said what I did earlier about, you know, is the Catholic Church now going to drop this foundational principle of itself? I think that one of the myths of abortion, well, it's not actually a myth, is that it's only opposed by religious people. Now, as you know, most of them are. I mean, I think the majority of people on the march today were religious. I know David Curtin is a believer, I think, and so yes, it is primarily religious people. I don't think they were all Christian, actually. There was a couple of people I saw in traditional Muslim dress, but it tends to be Christians. And indeed, you know, the the rally, which I left when we got to the rally. It began. I don't know whether they had speakers or anything. I didn't want to see any more speakers. I'd heard them earlier, but they had Christian sing-alongs. But of course, I'm not religious, as you know. But again, I'm not. I wouldn't call myself an atheist either, as you know. I think it's possible. I think it's likely there's a consciousness to the universe called God. It's convenient to call that God, but I'm just not. I don't follow any religion. However, I think this is the abortion issue, and there are atheo-materialists who are opposed to abortion. I was going to say Christopher Hitchens, but no, I think Christopher Hitchens. I don't know what he was opposed to or in favour of, because he would just say whatever. He would just say whatever he needed to get into arguments with other people. So I think he may have just said that for that purpose. But there are atheists who are pro-life. I think it is. I think the pro-life argument is essentially a secular human rights issue. This is not about religion. Its essence, it is a secular human rights issue. It is the fact that you and I don't have the right to life below a certain age. The only reason I'm here right now making this video is because my mother, and I know I've slagged her off a lot, but this is something I'm eternally grateful to her for, of course, chose not to have an abortion. Legally she could have done, because I won't say how old I am, but I was born after 1967, so she could have done, and she didn't. That's and you know what, if she chose to, what could I say about it? What could I do about it? You ask any of these people. Ask any of them. So, well, okay, ask an adult, ask anyone who's pro-abortion. All right, well, do you choose to die then? Would you like to die? And they say, no, I don't want to die. Right, you're saying that. The only reason you're saying that is because you can. Because you have been born and you have developed the power of speech. You've developed your language skills. That's the only reason you can say that. If you, before that age, before you were born, you couldn't say that, because you couldn't make that choice. Other people would have to make that choice for you, and it's like, what would you think of the person who chose to kill you? Things like that. You say, well, you can't. You see, the only reason abortion exists is for that reason. It's because the unborn they cannot protest. They cannot protest. They're the ultimate defenseless victims. And I wonder if the pro-choice people have thought about that, because they call themselves pro-choice, but they're anti-choice. They're against even the choice to live. Oh, and another massive. There's another massive. I'm just going through my notes here. I'm not doing them all in the order. There's another massive issue here. Black Lives Matter. A lot of these, you saw the kind of people who are protesting against us today. Loony lefty types, Unison, feminists, people who probably support Black Lives Matter. Well, little fact about Black Lives: the abortion rate generally is, as David Curtin says, is about a quarter. About a quarter of pregnancies end in termination. That's a huge number. Right, the proportion of pregnancies of black women who end in termination is over 50%. It's over 50%. Over 50% of black babies never get to see the light of day. If bubonic plague swept through the black community, you'd have a higher survival rate. But the people who say Black Lives Matter then support abortion, they support this. They don't think Black Lives matter. They think Black lives don't matter. They're probably less than white lives, because they matter less than white lives because black babies are more likely to be aborted. Oh, Down syndrome. No, I don't have time. I won't go into the Down syndrome thing in detail, but there's Down syndrome. I won't go into detail except to say that one of the speakers at this particular conference, the conference before the march, she was the lady who had the abortion. When she was there, she felt she was really chivied and chased, and she felt like everyone else was taken over. She felt like she was almost steamrolled into having an abortion. They started dehumanising the child, referring to it as it, saying the child is it. They called it an embryo, they called it it. And she felt they were dehumanising it. And after she had the abortion, she felt absolutely horrible about it. She felt absolutely awful. in women who are above a certain age they're advised, to put it advised is not the word, to have tests for Down syndrome. There's a test you can have for Down syndrome, and the tests involve a 1% chance of miscarriage, and many women say, no, I don't want that. And when they do that, you know, the doctors and the midwives, the way they respond is really unbelievable. I've heard stories, and I met a lady at one of Miles's conferences. She said that the doctor virtually stuck his foot in the door and said, you need to have this amniocentesis. Because she'd had a positive blood test for a hormone that's produced with Down syndrome, which leads to a 1 in 5 chance of a Down syndrome baby. You have a 1 in 5 chance of having a Down syndrome baby. You need the amniocentesis to confirm it. She said, I'm not having it. Please, please, you must have it. And I really recommend very strongly you have it. And I mean, a lot of people aren't. She didn't have it. She went home and she rolled the dice. In the end, she did have a Down syndrome baby. And the baby today is a fully grown girl. I think she's 18. It's a lovely girl. But they... Oh, you know, thank goodness I haven't said this before, but I'm glad now I'm out of it. I'm glad I'm out of the NHS, I really am. I'm really glad I am. Oh, yeah, I'm just checking out all my... Anyway, I'm just going through my notes here. There's one more thing I want to talk to you about. Look at that, I wasn't sure what I want to say. This is a tricky thing to talk about. Like I said, I have mentioned the abortion situation before. I've mentioned it before. But there's something that I've never talked about before on this channel. Never. And I'm going to talk about it now. And this is, I think, the reason why I feel the way I do, possibly, about this situation. And it puts me in a similar position to Anthony Avatino. As you know, I've got a daughter called Louisa, who's 26. She's not my first child. I actually had 2 daughters. The first one was called Alice, and she was stillborn at 34 weeks. This means she actually died while she was in gestation. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and it's the worst thing that ever will happen to me. It's the worst thing that ever could happen to me. Alice, she just stopped moving, right? You know, I was with my partner at the time. We went on to have another baby the following year, who was Louisa, who's 26 years old and happy and healthy. But just stopped. We didn't think much of it at the time, but the baby just stopped moving, and we just thought, oh, he or she's sleeping a lot. And when we told the midwife, she was very worried. We went into the hospital and they gave her an ultrasound test, and I said, I'm very sorry, but your baby's died. And then they had to induce labour. They had to induce labour for my partner, and she went through a long labour, actually, and in the end she had to have forceps. And this is a difficult thing at the best of times. It's called labour for a reason, because it's hard work. But there was no baby. There was no baby at the end of it. There was going to be a baby who died was going to come out at the end of it. I won't describe what Alice looked like in detail, but this was in January 1994 she was born, and she was born at 34 weeks. That's quite late for a stillborn baby. I won't describe her appearance, but in detail. But when my second daughter Louisa was born the following May, I reckon, you know, I could see resemblance there. Like, I knew that was her sister. I've never told you that before, but that's what happened. That's what happens. I know other people have been through this. Sargon of Akkad also had a stillborn son, and it's a horrible... My heart goes out to him. It's all the worse for him because he doesn't believe in the afterlife or anything. I believe Alice is still in existence, as you know. I can't imagine what kind of world we've come to, where what happened, the tragedy that befell my family and myself and my partner at the time, and that could be done on purpose, and that's fine. As long as the mother chooses to do it, that's okay. People say that's not murder. Possibly if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't feel as strongly as I do about this. I wonder how many of the people on that march today have had similar experiences to me. Well, I know some of them did. Well, I know that one of the speakers did, that lady who said she'd had an abortion. And there was the other lady who was offered an abortion. She was raped by her ex-boyfriend, and then I told you about, and she ended up getting pregnant. And everyone was egging her to have an abortion, and she said no. And that's the little 6-year-old boy came and stood beside her and says, "That's him." You know, it's like, you can imagine how scared, you know, when my partner was carrying Louisa for 9 months, we went through 9 months of continuous worry. Every time I'd phone her up and said, "Has she moved? Has she kicked?" And my partner would say, yeah, it's okay, she's kicked. And every time we went into the surgery and they listened to her heartbeat, they put the microphone against her belly, and is the heart still beating? At one point she had, because sometimes it's hard to find a baby's heartbeat with the transducer, and she, "Oh, I can't find it at the moment. Where is it? Hang on a minute." I thought, "Oh God, no, God, please. Oh, here it is." And I heard boom, 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 boom. And I went, "Oh." And so 9 months I went through of continuous worry of the worst kind. And you know what? When Louisa was induced at 38 weeks. They always do that when you've had a stillbirth before. And I got tonsillitis, and the antibiotics wouldn't clear it up, and it's typical of me that I get, you know, my emotional state creates physical symptoms in me. And then she came out and she was fine, and now she's 26. And so everything was all right in the end. But Alice was conceived and even became a real person. She was at 34 weeks, you know, if she'd been born then, she would almost certainly have survived. 34 weeks is nothing. That's not very premature these days. She may have had to spend a little bit in an incubator, but there'd been no danger from being born at 34 weeks. She could kick. We could feel her kick. And she reacted, you know, she would react to noise and things like that. Alice did. And we were all looking forward to her being born, and she'd come out into the world and become an adult and grow up and learn to speak and learn to walk and things like that. And we could play with her and things like that. And she just died. Sometimes this just happens for no reason. It's rather like cot death, which is another horrible, horrible thing. This happens, and they don't know why it happened. In this case, they did find a reason. It was cord strangulation. She was actually strangled by her own umbilical cord. But other times, no one knows. It just happens for no reason. It's almost as the soul incarnates and then changes its mind. Which is why it's like cot death, which is another horrible, horrible thing. The worst thing in the world. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine anything worse. Going through anything worse. I really can't. So, no, I don't believe in a woman's right to choose to kill her baby. She doesn't have that right. She has an obligation. In the same way, you know, men have lots of obligations in this world. Well, women do as well, and this is one of them. And no one's forced in our society. No woman will be forced to raise a child she doesn't want, because there are as I said earlier, there are 10 times as many childless couples sitting around waiting for someone to say, "Yes, you can have my baby," than there are babies available, and that includes reefer babies, rape, incest, fetal abnormality. So, if anyone doesn't like that, and you're offended, or you think it's offensive that I feel this way, well, tough shit. Go and watch another channel then. Go and watch another channel. Because I've explained why. If you think I'm wrong about any of the things I've said, if you think I've made an error, indeed, I'm going to watch Sticks, Hex and Hammer, and I wonder what he's got to say about this. But I've listened to debates, actually. Stephen Molyneux's done debates with pro-abortionists. if you think I'm wrong, then please explain why you think I'm wrong, why you think it's okay. But I think that I've done the right thing by going on this protest, and I'm probably going to go on more. I've actually kept the little flag. I'm supposed to return them at the end, but I couldn't see where you actually return them to. So I'm going to keep it and use it again because I'll probably go on more of these events. So you know, I'm not going to make it the core of everything I do, but I'm going to. It's a part of this list of things that I feel so strongly about. I need to take action. So, from a pleasant evening in Oxford here in South Parks, and it is very pleasant. Thank you all for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.